Let me tell you something straight up, because too many folks still don't get it. There's been a shift in the balance of power in this world, and the people who keep acting like they don't see it are the same ones who are going to get blindsided. For years, the global story has been the same America this, America that, America leading, America dictating. But now the script is different. You got a nation that's been rising so quietly, so steadily, that when it finally stood up, the whole world turned its head and said, hold up, wait a minute. That nation is India. And let me tell you why America can't ignore it anymore. You see, for decades, India was treated like that student in the back of the classroom. Smart as hell, potential shining all over them, but overlooked, underestimated, and pushed to the side while the teacher kept calling on the same old favorites. But eventually, that kid stops waiting to be called on. They raise their hand. They start speaking. They start answering questions. And before you know it, the whole classroom realizes that this student's got the answers everybody else was missing. That's India today. Now, America, they like being the one to set the tone, to call the shots, to tell everybody else how it's going to go down. But what do you do when the very people you thought you could lecture, advise, and guide are suddenly the ones creating their own rules? You can't ignore that anymore. And that's where we are right now. America is watching India step into arenas it never controlled before. Technology, defense, economy, space exploration, diplomacy, and doing it with a confidence that nobody can deny. Look at the economy. Let's start right there. People used to think of India as just a land of call centers and cheap labor. But boy, they missed the real story. India is building the kind of economy that don't just play catch up, it's setting the pace. We're talking about one of the fastest growing major economies in the world, with projections that say by 2030 India could be sitting at the number 2 spot, right under China, pushing the US into third. Now let me ask you this. How do you ignore a country that's about to pass you? You can't. You can try to downplay it. You can pretend the numbers don't matter, but reality don't lie. Growth is growth, and India's got it locked in. Then you look at the military power. People like to think of India as just a defensive nation, minding its business, trying to stay out of trouble. But that's outdated thinking. India has built one of the largest standing armies in the world, a navy that's expanding fast, and an air force that's rolling out some of the most advanced homegrown technology anybody's seen. You got missiles like BrahMos that can strike faster than people even realize what's happening. You got tanks, jets, submarines, and nuclear capability. America can't ignore a country that can defend itself on every single front and still have enough in reserve to support its allies. And let's talk about alliances, because this is where the game really gets interesting. For years, America loved to have countries that depended on it. That way, America could control the game. But India ain't playing that dependency role. India talks to Russia. It talks to the US. It talks to China. It talks to Europe. It talks to the Middle East. It talks to Africa. It talks to everybody. It's not locked into one corner. It's not tied to one master. India moves like a free agent, and in global politics, being a free agent is the most powerful position you can hold. Everybody wants you, everybody needs you, but you don't need any one of them. America can't ignore that kind of freedom. Now let's take it to space, because if you thought India was only about the ground game, you're mistaken. India went ahead and landed Chandrayaan-3 on the moon's south pole, something no other nation had ever done. That wasn't just a scientific win. That was a statement that said, we're here, and we're not playing small anymore. And it wasn't just about reaching the moon. It was about doing it at a fraction of the cost that America and other countries spend. Efficiency plus innovation, that's a deadly combination. America knows if India can pull off missions like that on a budget, then the future of space is wide open for them. But the real power, the one America cannot ignore, is India's people, over 1.4 billion strong, the largest democracy in the world. A young population hungry for opportunity, full of energy, talent, and drive. This is a generation that's coding the apps you use, designing the systems that run your businesses, leading the companies you depend on. Look at Silicon Valley. How many CEOs, how many top executives are Indian? It's not an accident, it's not luck. It's skill, education, and a culture that pushes through obstacles. America can't ignore a brainpower base like that. You can't act like it's invisible when it's shaping the very technology you use every single day. And let's not skip over the cultural power. You think Bollywood is just movies. You think yoga is just exercise. You think curry is just food. Nah, that's soft power. That's influence. That's culture spreading across borders until you don't even realize you're part of it. When millions of people worldwide are connecting to India through culture, that builds a respect and recognition no government can control. It makes India bigger than just its borders. That's another reason America can't ignore India, because India's in your living room, your playlist, your dinner table, and your mind without even trying. Now, here's the truth. A lot of folks don't want to say out loud America's used to competition, but the competition they're used to is predictable. They know what to expect from Europe, from China, from Russia. But India is unpredictable in the best way. One day it's buying weapons from Russia. The next day, it's doing defense deals with the US. One day, it's aligning with Barai chess. The next day, it's partnering with QAD. That's chess, not checkers. That's strategy on a whole other level. And when you move like that, America can't box you in, can't label you, can't put you in a category. That's why they can't ignore India. It refuses to be small enough to fit in their definitions. See, the thing about power is this. Real power doesn't need to announce itself every 5 minutes. Real power moves in silence until the results are too big to deny. And that's been India's story. Building roads, building cities, building infrastructure, rolling out digital payment systems so advanced they make America's look old school. Think about that for a second. America, the land of innovation, still swiping credit cards while India's villagers are paying with QR codes on their phones. You can't ignore that. That's the future unfolding right now. America also can't ignore the resilience of India. This is a nation that's been through colonization, partition, poverty, famine, wars, natural disasters, you name it. But every time it got knocked down, it stood back up stronger. That's not just survival, that's strength of character. And in the global stage, character matters. America sees it even if they don't always admit it. They know this is not a country you can push around anymore. This is a country that endured too much to ever go back to being silent. Now, let me be real with you, America ain't gonna just hand over respect. That's not how it works. Respect in international politics is earned, not given. But India has earned it, and then some. It earned it through growth, through innovation, through diplomacy, through power. And now America has no choice but to acknowledge it. Because ignoring India at this stage would be like ignoring gravity. You can try, but it's still pulling everything around it. And that's the reality of the new world we're stepping into. America can keep trying to hold on to the past, keep trying to replay the old records, but the music has changed. The beat is different. The rhythm belongs to new players, and India is right there in the center of it. The real reason America can't ignore India is simple, but it cuts deep. See, people get caught up in this idea that leadership in the world is about who has the biggest weapons, who has the loudest voice, or who can throw the most money around. But India ain't walking into this room trying to play by those old rules. Nah, India walked in, pulled up its own chair, and said, we're not just joining the table. You're going to eat on the plates we brought. That right there is what leadership looks like when you're not trying to imitate somebody else, but when you're rewriting the rules of the game itself. For the longest time, America has been comfortable leading the way it always has. Big speeches, big dollars, big armies. But let's be honest, those things don't work the same way anymore. People are tired of one country telling everybody else how to live. They're tired of being told what to do while their own people starve, while their own economies struggle, while their own futures feel like they've been mortgaged out to the so-called leaders of the world. That's where India comes in, not asking for permission, not begging for a seat, but showing the world there's a new way to lead. Now let's break this down, because leadership, real leadership, ain't about control. It's about influence. It's about being so valuable, so respected, so necessary that people look to you even when they don't have to. And that's exactly where India has positioned itself. Look at the tech world. Who's running some of the biggest companies in America? Indians. Who's coding the backbone of the digital future? Indians. Who's setting up the infrastructure for the fastest growing digital economy on earth? Indians. Leadership here doesn't look like domination. It looks like contribution. America can't ignore that, because every time it picks up a phone, swipes a card, logs into an app, chances are somebody from India had a hand in making that possible. That's influence woven right into everyday life. But let's not just stop at technology. Look at diplomacy. For years, leadership was measured by how many countries you could bully into doing what you wanted. But that playbook is getting outdated real fast. People don't want a boss. They want a partner. They don't want orders. They want respect. And India understands that. That's why you'll see India sitting down with Russia on one day, America on another, and the next week working with Africa, the Middle East, or the Pacific nations. That's not fence sitting. That's leadership with options. That's saying, we don't belong to anybody, but everybody's welcome to walk with us. America can't ignore that, because it's a style of leadership they can't control and they can't replicate. And then there's the military. Traditionally, leadership was about flexing muscles. I've got the biggest army, the biggest guns, the fastest jets, so I'm the leader. But India is rewriting even that part. Instead of just buying weapons like it used to, India is designing, testing, and building its own. Missiles like BrahMos, fighter jets like Tejas, anti-satellite weapons, nuclear submarines. It's not just about having them, it's about creating them. And when you create, you're not dependent on anybody else. That's leadership through independence. America can't ignore that, because it means India doesn't have to knock on its door for protection anymore. But the thing that really sets India apart, the thing that makes this rewriting of leadership undeniable, is that India doesn't just lead with power, it leads with people. Over 1.4 billion people, the youngest workforce in the world. And that workforce is educated, skilled, and ambitious. Leadership is no longer about who can draft the most soldiers. It's about who can train the most thinkers, innovators, creators. America can't ignore India, because while they're trying to figure out how to pay for student loans and get young people back on track, India is unleashing millions of new engineers, doctors, scientists, and entrepreneurs into the world every single year. That's an army of brains, not just bodies. See, here's the difference. America wants to keep the world believing leadership means follow us or you're against us. But India is proving leadership can mean walk with us and we'll build together. That's a whole new language, a whole new rhythm. And people are dancing to it because it feels real, it feels fair, it feels sustainable. The global South. Countries across Africa, Latin America, Asia, they see India and they say, finally, somebody who looks like us, who talks like us, who understands what we go through is showing us that we don't have to wait for permission anymore. That's leadership by example, not intimidation. And you know what's funny? America thought leadership was about always being first. First on the moon, first with nuclear weapons, first with technology. But India is showing you can win even when you're not first, if you do it better, smarter, and more efficiently. Look at Chandrayaan-3 landing on the moon's south pole. America never did it. Russia never did it. China never did it. India did it, and they did it with less money than Hollywood spends on a space movie. That's leadership in a new form, where efficiency is power. Where doing more with less becomes the new standard. And America can't ignore that because deep down, they know the old way of throwing billions at problems isn't sustainable. Let's talk about resilience. Leadership is also about how you handle storms. America loves to showcase strength, but when cracks show in its politics, in its economy, in its society, the whole world sees it. India, on the other hand, has been through colonization, famine, wars, poverty, and still stood tall. Every time it gets hit, it bounces back. That kind of resilience earns respect in a way weapons and money can't. People follow leaders who survive storms because survival teaches lessons no classroom ever could. That's why America can't ignore India, because India's leadership is born out of endurance, not entitlement, and culture. Oh, let me get into culture for a second, because leadership in today's world isn't just about politics.